Picture this. A car brand that once ruled British roads sells exactly 6 vehicles in an entire month. Not 6,000. Not 600. 6. That's fewer cars than most dealerships sell before lunch on a Saturday. And that isn't even the strangest number in this story. There's a factory that stood for 120 years, through 2 world wars and every economic storm Britain ever faced, and it just shut its gates for good, taking around 1,000 jobs down with it. Then there's the brand sitting at the very top of this list, a company still clocking in 6,000 British workers every single morning, even as it quietly bleeds money from the inside out. These are 6 car brands in serious trouble on British soil, right now, in real time. And if you're planning to buy one of these cars, or if one is already sitting on your driveway, stop scrolling and pay attention. Because here's the truth nobody puts in the brochure. When a car brand starts collapsing, the executives in the boardroom don't feel it. You do. It shows up in your resale value. It shows up when your warranty claim gets delayed. It shows up 5 years from now when you can't find a single spare part for love or money. So let's break down exactly what's happening, brand by brand, starting at number 6. Number 6. DS Automobiles. Let's start with a brand that had every advantage on paper and still couldn't make the formula work. DS was built to be Citroën's upmarket cousin, the fancier sibling wearing a nicer jacket. The idea sounded smart enough in a boardroom. Take solid French engineering, dress it up with premium materials, sprinkle in some continental style, and charge a bit more for the privilege. Give British drivers a taste of luxury without the eye-watering German price tag. And to be fair, the cars themselves aren't bad. The styling stands out. The cabins feel genuinely different. DS isn't copying anyone else's homework on the showroom floor. But here's the wall this brand keeps running into, and it's the same wall that has flattened every invented luxury badge before it. Premium buyers aren't shopping for value. They're shopping for status, for a badge that turns heads. And the moment somebody at a dinner party glances at your DS and asks the one killer question, "Wait, isn't that basically a Citroën?" the entire premium illusion crumbles on the spot. That question has never had a good answer, and the sales figures prove it. In the first 5 months of 2026, industry data placed DS among the worst-performing brands anywhere in Europe, not just among premium rivals, but across the entire market, keeping company with struggling names like Mitsubishi, Alfa Romeo, and Ford. Here in Britain specifically, March 2026 delivered yet another underwhelming month, with DS trailing well behind the wider market average. Behind closed doors, parent company Stellantis has already started scaling back production on DS models, including the DS3, simply because demand across Europe hasn't shown up. If you're eyeing a DS today, think twice, not because the engineering will let you down, but because you might be buying into a badge British drivers never fully accepted and may never accept. And that hesitation always ends up written into one number: what you're offered the day you try to sell it. Number 5. Honda. This next one stings differently, because Honda isn't some obscure badge nobody wanted. This is a name Britain trusted completely for generations. Honda was the brand you bought precisely so you'd never have to think about your car again. Engines that seemed to run forever. A reputation earned not through flashy adverts, but through millions of ordinary commutes that simply never went wrong. If your dad ever told you, "Just buy a Honda and stop worrying," you already understand exactly what this brand meant. So here's what should genuinely raise an eyebrow. Across the first half of 2026, Honda was ranked among the weakest performing larger car brands in the entire UK market. In March, it undersold the wider market by more than 10%. Then in June, it happened again. One bad month is a fluke. 2, with the same pattern, is a warning sign. And the reason isn't that Honda quietly got worse at building cars, because it hasn't. The problem is that the ground shifted beneath the brand's feet without anyone announcing it. Honda's entire pitch for decades was simple: dependable, sensible, worth every penny. But throughout 2026, a fresh wave of competitors arrived in Britain offering exactly that same promise, only with more equipment, longer warranties, and lower price tags attached. Honda didn't get worse. It just stopped being the only brand telling that story. And when your whole identity is built on being the safe, sensible choice, and someone else undercuts you on safe and sensible, you're suddenly fighting a battle you weren't prepared for. After 40 years of earning British trust the hard way, getting outflanked on your own home turf isn't a rough quarter. It's an identity crisis playing out in real time. So if you're buying a Honda today expecting that badge to hold its value the way it always has, understand that the market may already be quietly repricing that trust. Number 4. Fiat. Now we reach the numbers that made me stop, blink, and check the source twice. Fiat is the brand that put an entire generation of Britain behind the wheel of small, cheerful, no-nonsense cars. The 500. The Panda. These were never about horsepower or prestige. They were about getting from A to B without draining your bank account, dependable, affordable, and everywhere you looked. In the first quarter of 2026, Fiat's UK sales fell by 60%. Read that again. 60% in a single quarter. That was the steepest drop recorded by any established car brand anywhere in the UK market during that period. This isn't a dip. It isn't a rough patch that corrects itself next month. It's a genuine collapse, and it didn't stop there either. Across the entire first half of 2026, Fiat remained locked near the bottom of the performance table nationwide. Behind the scenes, the picture is just as grim, with Stellantis already scaling back production on the Fiat Panda because demand has fallen away across Europe, not just in Britain. Here's the bitter twist in this story. Fiat's entire reason for existing was being the affordable, no-frills option. That was the whole pitch, start to finish. But when your only real advantage is price, you're completely exposed the second arrival shows up offering a better-equipped car for less money, and that is precisely what's happening right now. We'll get to exactly who's doing that shortly, because it explains most of this list. Number 3. Vauxhall. This next one hurts, and it's not the story you might expect. Vauxhall is still selling cars in Britain, and showroom numbers on paper are holding up reasonably well. So this isn't a tale about a badge nobody wants anymore. This is something worse. This is the story of a genuine British institution being quietly taken apart, piece by piece, while most people weren't watching. For 120 years, Vauxhall built vehicles in Luton. 120 years, surviving 2 world wars and outlasting the collapse of nearly the entire rest of the British motor industry around it. Generation after generation of Luton families worked inside that plant. If you grew up anywhere in Britain over the last 50 years, chances are you've sat in a Cavalier, a Cortina rival Carlton, an Astra, or a Corsa. Vauxhall wasn't just a car brand in this country. It was part of the furniture. And now, that chapter is over. Stellantis has confirmed the closure of the Luton plant, ending production there entirely and placing roughly 1,000 jobs at risk overnight. Luton Council responded with fury, calling the economic damage to the town substantial and lasting. The Unite Union labeled the decision an outright disgrace, calling it a slap in the face to a workforce that gave the company decades of loyalty. One worker described feeling utterly devastated, saying he genuinely had nowhere else nearby to turn for employment. And here's the detail that matters most for anyone watching this closely. Stellantis pointed the finger directly at the UK's zero-emission vehicle mandate, the government rule requiring manufacturers to sell a steadily rising percentage of electric vehicles each year, whether or not British buyers are actually asking for them. Stellantis stated publicly that the mandate was significantly hurting its business model, because consumer demand for EVs simply wasn't catching up to the targets fast enough. Days after the closure was announced, the company's chief executive resigned. So yes, the Vauxhall badge survives. But the British manufacturer behind it, the thing that made it genuinely ours, has been switched off, and a government policy is sitting right at the center of that story. Number 2. Jaguar. Now we arrive at what might be the most dramatic, largely self-inflicted collapse in modern motoring history. Say the word Jaguar to anyone who loves cars and watch their face change. The leaping cat. British elegance in motion. The E-Type, a car Enzo Ferrari himself reportedly called the most beautiful ever built. The XJ gliding silently down a country lane. Jaguar was never just transport. It was a statement about who you were. Here's what's left of that legacy today. In January 2025, Jaguar registered 783 new cars across the United Kingdom. 1 year later, in January 2026, that number had fallen to 6. 6 cars, in an entire month, in the brand's own home market, according to figures from the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, a decline of over 99%. Now, in fairness, part of this collapse is deliberate. Jaguar discontinued its entire previous lineup on purpose, clearing the decks ahead of a full relaunch as an all-electric brand, so the shelves were always going to look bare during this transition. But deliberate or not, the way that transition was handled turned a controlled pause into a full-blown crisis. First came the product wipeout. The XE, the XF, the F-Type, the I-Pace, the E-Pace, all discontinued before the replacements were anywhere close to ready. Dealers were left standing in half-empty showrooms with almost nothing to actually sell walking customers. Then came the rebrand. In November 2024, Jaguar unveiled a new campaign built around the tagline, "Copy Nothing." The advert featured no cars. None. No heritage, no engineering, and no leaping cat, because that globally recognized symbol had been quietly retired too, replaced with something far more generic. The public reaction was instant and merciless. Even Elon Musk publicly asked the brand, "Do you sell cars?" The internet did the rest from there. Months later, the chief executive stepped down, and the damage by that point had become structural, not just a bruised reputation. Jaguar's UK dealer network is reportedly shrinking from around 80 locations down to just 20. Reliability rankings currently place the brand 29th out of 32 manufacturers. And the new electric models aren't expected to arrive in meaningful numbers until 2027. So if you're considering a Jaguar right now, new or used, go in with your eyes fully open. Resale values on a brand in this position carry serious risk. A dealer network shrinking from 80 stores to 20 means servicing gets harder to reach and slower to book. And the question of long-term parts and support over the next decade is a completely legitimate worry. Jaguar didn't fall because the world simply moved on without it. It fell because the people steering the company chose to tear down almost everything that made a Jaguar and replace it with a promise still waiting to be kept. Number 1. Nissan. And here we land on the one that should genuinely surprise you, because this isn't a fading luxury badge chasing a smaller and smaller audience. This is one of the largest carmakers on the entire planet, backed by more than 90 years of history, still selling cars across Britain every single day, and still employing around 6,000 people in this country. Don't dismiss this one too quickly, because the numbers underneath tell a genuinely alarming story. Start with the money. Nissan reported a loss of $3.8 billion in a single financial year. Not a shrinking profit margin, a full $3.8 billion loss. The response was drastic and immediate. 20,000 job cuts announced globally, 7 manufacturing plants closing worldwide, and a 20% cut to overall production capacity. These are not the moves of a company navigating one difficult year. These are the moves of a company fighting for its long-term survival, and that fight has reached British soil directly. The Sunderland plant is the largest car factory anywhere in the United Kingdom, employing around 6,000 people who build the Qashqai, the Juke, and the electric Leaf. It is Nissan's only manufacturing site on the entire European continent, which makes it enormously important to the wider British economy. That plant has now had one of its 2 production lines shut down completely, with all 3 models squeezed onto a single remaining line as part of a broader restructuring that has already cut around 900 jobs across Europe. Output at Sunderland has fallen to roughly 273,000 cars a year, down sharply from a peak of well over 500,000. Then there's the market share story, which might be the most telling detail of all. Back in 2016, Nissan controlled 5.6% of the entire British car market. By 2026, that figure had fallen to just 3.7%. But here's the part that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. Nissan is now being outsold in Britain by Chery, the Chinese group behind the Omoda and Jaguar brands, which has already claimed nearly 5% of the market on its own. MG sits ahead of Nissan too, at around 4%, with BYD close behind at nearly 3.5%. A 90-year-old global giant, with a major factory employing 6,000 British workers, is now being outsold by brands that most people in this country had never even heard of 2 years ago. So why should any of this matter to you as a buyer? Because when a company this large starts fighting for survival, the shareholders are never the ones who feel it first. Owners feel it first. Warranty support quietly tightens. Dealer networks contract. Spare parts get harder to source. And resale values fall faster than most owners can react to. Buying a Nissan today isn't automatically a mistake. But buying one without understanding exactly what's unfolding behind the scenes absolutely could be. The real story behind all 6. 6 brands, 6 separate collapses on paper, but really, this is one single story wearing 6 different faces. And there's one question tying every single one of them together. Why is all of this happening at the exact same time? Two forces are pulling these brands apart simultaneously. The first is regulation. The zero-emission vehicle mandate requires manufacturers to sell a rising share of electric cars in Britain every single year, with targets that keep climbing regardless of whether buyers are actually ready to follow. Stellantis said this outright when it closed the Luton plant. The mandate was significantly hurting its business model because real consumer demand simply wasn't there to match the targets on paper. Manufacturers are being pushed to build and sell cars faster than the public is choosing to buy them, and something eventually has to break. In Luton's case, what broke was 1,000 jobs. The second force is competition, and this is the part most people still haven't fully grasped. 2 years ago, BYD had barely set foot in the United Kingdom. Chery Group didn't exist here at all, not one single showroom. Today, their combined UK registrations already sit ahead of Volkswagen, historically the single biggest car brand in this country. Two Chinese groups, one of which sold 0 cars here 2 years ago, are now collectively outselling Volkswagen. And crucially, they aren't simply growing the overall market. They're taking chunks directly out of it. Their combined growth outpaces the growth of the entire UK car market, which means every extra sale they make is a sale pulled straight from somewhere else, from Fiat, from Honda, from Nissan, from every brand on this list. That's the real mechanism at work here. Regulation squeezing legacy brands from above, while a wave of cheaper, better-equipped competitors eats away at them from below. And caught directly in that vice are the brands that were already vulnerable, the invented premium badges, the ones with nothing to offer beyond price, and the ones that torch their own identity along the way. What this means for you, right now. So what does all of this actually mean if you're standing in a showroom about to sign on the dotted line? 3 things matter more here than anything printed on a spec sheet. First, check the brand's health before you check the car's features. A brilliant car from a collapsing brand is still a poor purchase, because in 5 years, you'll be the one hunting down spare parts and absorbing the hit when you try to sell it. Look at whether the brand is growing or shrinking in Britain before you fall in love with the alloy wheels. Second, watch the dealer network closely. This is the early warning sign almost nobody bothers to check. When a brand's dealer count starts falling, the way Jaguar's has dropped from around 80 locations down to 20, servicing becomes slower, warranty work becomes harder to schedule, and the entire ownership experience quietly degrades around you. Ask how many franchise dealers sit within an hour of your home, then ask how many there were 3 years ago, and compare the answers honestly. Third, be realistic about resale value from day one. If you're financing on a PCP deal, this point matters enormously. The value of a car from a shrinking brand can fall far faster than the finance company originally assumed when it calculated your monthly payments. That gap is exactly how people end up owing more than their car is actually worth.